little bit intimidating. I'm Alex Chatfield. I'm going to be talking about political advertising in 2020 and the role of digital media. I work for a company called Xandr. If you're not familiar with Xandr, I just want to take 1 minute to formally introduce Xandr. Xandr is AT&T's advertising and analytics division. We provide programmatic technology solutions like Xandr Invest to advertisers and agencies, as well as our Xandr monetized product to broadcasters and publishers. Xandr also represents AT&T TV, formerly known as DirecTV, and in this market partners with Dish as D2 Media to offer TV buyers a really easy way to purchase addressable linear TV inventory at scale. So that's Xandr. My role at Xandr is on the digital side, looking after our DSP business. And today I want to walk you through the evolution of the digital advertising landscape over the last 2 decades. I specifically want to take a look at how that landscape has impacted the political advertising space. Then we're going to move to present day and look at the landscape that we're all operating in today. Look at some of the regulations that we're dealing with, some of the platform changes that are occurring. And then we'll close by talking about some of the biggest opportunities for all of us in the 2020 cycle. So it should be no surprise to anybody in this room that digital advertising is very big and very important. I think it was eMarketer that projects about $151 billion of U.S. digital advertising spend this year. So this is a big deal. So how has this rise impacted political advertising? I want to start by going back to 2008. Didn't realize this slide built. All right. So in 2008, the first generation iPhone was 1 year old. If you were like me, you still had a flip phone in 2008. But still, 21.5% of consumers' attention from a media perspective was being spent on digital. That's pretty significant. Now, mostly that time was on desktops or laptops. But if you look at how the market was spending their advertising dollars, only 6.9% was going to digital advertising, and a disproportionate amount was going to television. What's a little surprising, however, is the adoption rate among political advertisers. Just 0.4%. I mean, that's basically zero. So 2008, the digital media landscape was irrelevant for political advertising. So let's fast forward 4 years. It's now 2012. In 2012, the iPhone, let me check my notes. The iPhone 4S was out. I think I own the iPhone 4. We were on a decent network at this point. The iPhone was connected to a 3G network, and 1 out of every 2 people owned a smartphone. So mobile adoption has started to take off. And if we look at the percent of media attention time on digital, we're now at 37.7%. So mobile is really fueling this growth of digital attention time. And the percent of spend that the market is spending on digital has started to catch up. But it's still not even, right? The market dynamics would say you should spend roughly the same amount of time as consumers are spending on that medium. So if you double click on that, what's really happening there is that there's not a lot of spend on mobile. So we're getting a lot of mobile media attention time, but not a lot of dollars. It's too new. So there's some inefficiency in the market. But surely at this point, the political advertising space has started to really adopt digital advertising. Turns out that's also not the case. Only 1.8% of political advertising spend went to digital in 2012. And you see a continued, like, way over-indexing on television at almost 75% of all dollars. So let's jump to 2016. All right, we now have the iPhone 7. We're on a 4G network. 8 out of 10 people have a smartphone in their pocket. So a much more connected environment. So mobile usage is now really going through the roof. Users are checking their phone over 150 times per day. Social media specifically is exploding, with consumers spending over 2 hours per day on social media. That's a ridiculous amount of time. And so how does the political advertising market react to this environment? Okay, finally, we're doing something. 10% of digital, 10% of political spend went to digital in the 2016 cycle. 1 out of every 5 of those digital dollars was on social. So we start to see adoption, and 2016 is really the first cycle where digital was important. So that's a massive improvement in advertising following eyeballs. Still out of whack from the market. What the overall market's doing is spending 36.7% of spend on digital, but political is just at 10, but better than 1 or 0. And if you look at what's happening across the other channels, you see that political is continuing to spend 70% of its money on television. So still an over-indexing on television relative to the amount of media attention time the consumers are actually spending on that channel. Okay, so digital officially bursts onto the scene in 2016. What happens next? Well, a lot of good. Folks realize that they can do a lot of really smart, effective, efficient media buying. They can bring a lot of advanced data and data science. They're able to do audience micro-targeting, create an audience micro-messaging. So these are all great things, but what also happens? We have a bunch of scandals, right? We have Cambridge Analytica. We have scandals around foreign interference. In retrospect, this is not all that surprising. This market evolved so rapidly. It's not that surprising that some bad actors or bad practices came into play. And I just want everyone to appreciate really how new political advertising is in the context of digital media. So what happens after these scandals? Well, the government responds, and in lieu of having any federal regulation, which folks have talked about this morning, we've seen states come up with their own specific regulation. Washington State and Maryland were the first two. Others have followed: New York, New Jersey, California, Nevada. And what these states are attempting to do is require advertisers, publishers, and platforms to provide transparency into their media spend, not all dissimilar from what the FCC requires for television spending, to disclose the creatives that are being run, and to create a digital archive for the public. So these are now live regulations out there that all of us need to be aware of and adjust to comply with. Each state's rules are slightly different, which creates some challenges for us as media buyers. The media industry has also responded. So we've seen some very major digital publishers completely blocking, shutting off political advertising: Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, Spotify recently. And it's not because they don't want to accept the money. Everybody, all these publishers want to accept the money. There's lots of very premium publishers out there that want to accept political advertising. But there's a ton of fear in the market now. A lot of folks don't understand what regulations are out there. They don't know if they have the systems in place to comply with them. They don't really know how to comply with them. And there's generally a lack of trust around ad content and concerns around, if I'm CNN, I don't want fake news running on my site, and there's a lot of editorial concerns. The buying platforms have also responded, and there's been a spectrum of solutions out there. There's some very major publicly traded DSPs, buying platforms that have done effectively nothing, that have not rolled out any changes. There's others that have gone to the other end and are enforcing very stringent controls above and beyond what's required by any of these states. And so you end up with two extremes, for the most part, out in the marketplace. So you, as a media buyer, need to start really doing your homework to understand what your buying platform has done and if they are protecting you as an advertiser. We at Xandr have tried to come with an approach that's in the middle that allows you to safely serve your advertising in all states. So as part of our workflow, we now require media buyers to enter in the transparency requirements that are required for those states, and we'll automatically post the transparency data on xandr.com/illegal. You can go check that out right now. And what this is allowing media buyers to do is to continue to access premium video inventory at scale across all device types, as we're getting publishers comfortable that we're ensuring that they're in compliance by accepting these advertising units. And we're also allowing our clients to continue to bring and leverage their data. It's been talked a lot about earlier this morning, how Google has made changes to prevent that. So we think this is really market leading, and want to just encourage everybody to pay attention to this space and to make sure that their platform is doing what they need to be doing so that you're able to run your campaign successfully. Okay, so it's now 2020, and as we look to this cycle, there's no doubt in my mind that digital advertising is going to be bigger than it's ever been. We already saw the stats earlier that there's more media attention time from consumers on digital formats, and not enough spend relative to that percentage. So there's a giant sort of tailwind pushing or encouraging all of us to reach those consumers on a digital environment. The other new tailwind is the new device type. I'm sure all of us are familiar with connected TVs. Xandr puts out a relevance report every year. Last year's, our 2019 report found that on average, US homeowners have 10 connected devices at home. And over 40% of consumers today use connected TV devices to stream content on a daily basis. So there's a huge amount of more media consumption now occurring on digital, and this is a new device that's going to fuel a new marketplace. In 2019, the market spent over $6.9 billion on connected TVs. That's pretty amazing. eMarketer projects $8.88 billion will be spent this year, with political spend north of $700 million. So while CTV and over-the-top streaming services represent a great opportunity for buyers, there are several challenges that everybody needs to be aware of. audience fragmentation, measurement, and frequency capping. So with these challenges in mind, it's more critical than ever that your programmatic buying platform has a strong deterministic identity solution. Through a device graph, like Xandr's or whatever programmatic platform you're using, you can accurately reach voters on any screen. You can maximize unique reach and media efficiency by frequency capping those users as they traverse across all their different devices. And you can sequence messages and retarget users across their devices. If you do not have a deterministic identity solution, you need to switch platforms and get one. Otherwise, you should not be running on connected TVs. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to close with a Xandr sales slide. Apologies, I had to throw some sales work in here. To be successful in this coming cycle, it is absolutely critical that you have direct and complete access to digital inventory, especially digital video inventory, as we want to run persuasion campaigns, that you're able to bring your data onto these platforms, you're able to bring data science, that you're able to reach your voters in every state, not just the states that don't have compliance requirements. You're able to reach your voters across every screen, and that you're complying with the transparency requirements of the current states that are requiring it, and there may be many more to come. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Xandr Invest. That is our buying platform. We think it's very well positioned to help all of you in the political advertising space, and I hope to see much more adoption than what we saw in 2016 of just 10% of spend. Thank you.